Hello, my name is Chris Metaverso. Ever since the 1970s, I've been worried about terrorism, crisis in the Middle East, problems with energy and the environment. We didn't really do anything about it back then, and just now we're starting to really wake up, I think. Especially since September the 11th, 2001, I've really made it my personal mission to do something about it. Now, my father has been working on solar and wind energy design since the early 1980s. I took over the development on the solar energy and completely changed his original design, in fact went far beyond the original concept. However, putting his many decades of aerospace engineering experience into play, he has perfected the wind energy design. Now, I want to direct your attention to the chart courtesy of the Energy Information Administration. This is solar energy. Notice how insignificant the growth is projected to be. Just a tiny little fraction from here to 2030. Just a tiny little fraction. Now, let's take wind energy. Wind energy is here now, and it's projected to grow substantially, but after 2010, the growth remains flat. This chart here shows the overall energy market for 2006. Here's oil, natural gas, coal, nuclear, and renewable. Renewable is 6.8% of the overall energy market in 2006. We need to change this. We need to completely invert this chart so that renewable is more than 90% of the energy consumed in this country. How are we going to do that? Well, that brings me to my next topic. I'm very happy, actually, to talk about the three inventions that we're working on. First, my father's invention, a wind turbine. Now, you'll notice this looks nothing like what we are told is a wind turbine. You see, basically we're not being told the complete truth. A turbine, by definition, must have an enclosure. If it doesn't have an enclosure, it's a wind generator, not a wind turbine. A turbine, by definition, has an enclosure. The enclosure acts to enhance the properties of the working fluid. For example, a jet engine. You'll notice that jet engines have enclosures, and that's why they're called turbine engines. To give you an idea of how this projection is obsolete with an invention like this, the available power from the wind is proportional to the cube of the wind speed. That means we take something like this and we make it a lot bigger simply by accelerating the speed of the wind, which is what the enclosure does, which is what most turbines do. They accelerate the flow of the working fluid. So obviously, if your invention utilizes some of these principles, such as concentration or acceleration, you're going to have a completely different output without much increase in cost, and you're going to completely change the projection. And that is how we're going to turn this around. Now, going to the solar, I can't talk much about my solar invention because I'm finalizing my patent application. I'm working on prototypes and so forth. But I will point out that with photovoltaics, okay, first of all, photo means light. Sunlight is about half light and about half heat. So if your energy device is not utilizing both the light and the heat in sunshine, you're only going to, first of all, you're limiting yourself to about half. of what you can get. And then second of all, the inherent efficiency of photovoltaic devices is it's inherently low. The voltages per cell are typically, you know, they're like under a volt, or they're maybe like 2 volts. You know, so the voltage is low, the efficiencies are low, the output is low. So again, you need to have concentration. Otherwise, you don't have it. Now, you know. Also, there's a fundamental technological limitation that you're seeing here. Around 1988, the price per watt bottomed out at about $4 per watt. Now, in order to compete with existing coal, oil, natural gas, and nuclear, you're going to have to get the price of your device down to around $1 per watt, because that's what you're competing with. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to change this very much. Okay. And so what you have to do is you have to design that into your device. And right here you can see that solar photovoltaics have kind of hit the wall there in terms of just the straight out device itself. There's a lot of limitations as to how these things are manufactured. They require a lot of energy to manufacture to begin with. You've got to take silicon, you've got to melt it. You know, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of chemicals, and et cetera, et cetera. But regardless, that's another principle that we're using is we're looking at having devices that cost around $1 per watt. Finally, there is our engine, which I developed, and my engine is basically a device. It's about this big. It's about this thick. Okay, it's kind of like a Lego block. Basically, you can stack them up if you want. If you need a lot of horsepower, you just stack a bunch of them up. It can burn pretty much any fuel. You know, alcohol, gasoline, diesel, biodiesel, mixtures of all these different kinds of fuels. Basically, if it's a flammable fuel and it can be put through a fuel injector, it will burn in my engine. And the engine is naturally lowers emissions because it uses what the government calls, what the DOE is calling HCCI, which is homogeneous charge compression ignition. Now, they use pistons and all this complicated crap. I use pure rotational motion, and my engine has fewer than a handful of moving parts. So I look at these hybrid vehicles, and I really have to laugh, because what do you need a hybrid vehicle for when you've got an engine like this? To give you another example, you know, it's a series of discs when you stack these engine modules up, and the discs are controllable. So now you've got a series of controllable discs, so that reduces or eliminates the need for a transmission. You know, it just keeps going on like this. So first of all, basically, in conclusion, I have to say the problem is not a lack of resources. The problem is a lack of imagination. And in conclusion, I have to say, we can turn this around. We can put this country on 90% plus renewable energy, but we're not going to do it with the traditional, conventional technologies, and you know what we've been told is the only way you can do this. We have to use our imagination, and we have to have and sustain the political will to do this. And basically, we have to be united, and that, to me, that's why we call it the United States of America.